Hey, Astra Kids, and welcome back. And in today's video, we'll be talking about Saturn in the sign of Leo. Let's go ahead and jump right into this. So before we start, I just want to give a few quick disclaimers here. So firstly, we will be using Vedic astrology. So if you are not familiar with your Vedic sidereal positions, make sure to check out the calculator down below in the description. Also, it's important to understand the aspects and conjunctions that Saturn has in the chart, as this will alter the results. So you want to see, are there any planets with Saturn, any planets aspecting to Saturn? This is very important. It's also important to see which house is Saturn positioned in. And I've done a whole series on Saturn through the 12 houses. So if you have not seen that, make sure to check that out. I will leave a link for the playlist above and down below in the description. It's also important to see, what does Saturn rule in your chart? So where is Capricorn and Aquarius? Those houses will also have an influence of Saturn in your chart. Another thing to understand is activation. So, at certain periods of our lives, Saturn will become more active, and the most prominent time will be during a dasha period. So, if you've not seen my video on the Saturn Mahadasha Bhuktis, make sure to check that out. I will leave a link for that above and down below in the description. Another important factor is transits. So, you want to see, are there any planets that are transiting over your natal Saturn? This will definitely have an impact on how Saturn behaves in your chart. Along with this, you want to see, is Saturn transiting to your natal moon? This will be a sati period when Saturn is 12th, 1st, or 2nd to your natal moon. This will definitely have a huge impact from Saturn in your chart. Along with this, the main periods when Saturn becomes mature in the chart is when Saturn returns back to its original position around the age of 29 or 30 years of age. This is when you go through a Saturn return where you become more aware of the karmas and lessons that Saturn has to bring to you. Also, at the age of maturity, 36, is when Saturn really starts to develop in the chart. So from the age of 36 and onwards is where you can really see the results of Saturn starting to come true in the chart. Another factor is Saturn connected to any other karmas in the chart? So you want to see, is Saturn retrograde? Because that will definitely indicate that Saturn is carrying some extra karmas, especially in relationship to servants, to anyone who does any kind of work for you, like people who come to your house to clean, anyone at all who's providing you a service, there will be karma related to those people. Also to elderly people, to those in need, those who need your service and assistance. If Saturn is in a combustion, then this will also carry some heavy karmas in the chart, specifically around those houses that are ruled over by Saturn. Another factor to look at is, what is the Chara Karaka for Saturn? So is Saturn your Dara Karaka, your Atma Karaka? All of this is important to see in the chart. Another factor is Saturn in a Papkartari yoga? So this is when two malefics are surrounding a planet or house in the chart. This will definitely carry some heavy karmas as well. Another factor to understand is the drishti, the aspects of Saturn. So Saturn will always aspect third from its position, which shows the effort, the action that you have to take in this life. Also, the seventh aspect of any planet shows the desire. It shows the reflection of that house, what we're seeking from that opposite house. So that will also show up through Saturn's aspect. And along with this, the final aspect of Saturn is always the 10th aspect, which shows the final results. It shows the karmic return in the chart. Another technique to see for Saturn's position in your natal chart is to see, where is Saturn positioned from its home sign. And specifically, you want to see, where is Saturn positioned from Aquarius, because that is the Mulatrikone sign, the office sign, where it is most strongest. You can also see it from Capricorn's position as well, as that is a secondary home of Saturn. But really, the most important one is always going to be from the position of Aquarius. Now, how do you want to interpret Saturn in your natal chart? Firstly, you want to see the D1 Rashi. So most of you are familiar with your natal chart, your birth chart, which is that D1 Rashi chart. So seeing the position of Saturn in that chart is going to be very important, as that will show the karmas that are associated with Saturn. You also want to see Saturn in the D9 Navamsa because that will show how Saturn's fruits will start to mature in your life as well. So, what you want to do, especially to see the strength of Saturn in the chart, is to see how is Saturn positioned in the D9. If you have Saturn poorly placed in your D1 Rashi chart, but then it is placed in a better position in the D9 chart, then this is going to be very favorable. That means that those karmas are going to ripen really well for you in your life. If Saturn gets worse, though, in the D9, then this means that definitely there are remedial measures that you need to take. And so it's important to see an astrologer, anyone at all who is able to give you these remedial measures to help you to improve Saturn in your natal chart. If it stays the same, of course, this is going to create a Vigatama effect, which is going to make Saturn exceptionally powerful in your natal chart as well. Another area to see Saturn in is in the D10 chart because Saturn is associated with work, with responsibility, with discipline. So on some level, Saturn is also associated with our career as well. So you want to see where is Saturn placed in that D9 Dasamsa chart, which is going to tell you everything about your work life. Some other charts that you may want to see Saturn from are the D33 and the D60. These are heavily karmic charts, especially the D60 will show you what are these karmas of Saturn in relationship to your past life experience. So this becomes extremely important if you're curious about those karmas. Let's talk about a few remedial measures as well. These are simple remedial measures that you can put into practice where you don't even really need an astrologer to do some of these. These are the simplest ones, and these are the ones that I would recommend the most because most people seek out gemstones or other types of remedies that will give a quick and easy fix. And what you have to understand is that Saturn demands discipline, patience, work ethic from us. So it's important that we are also incorporating remedies where you can actually take action and do something in life versus just trying to take a quick remedial measure. So the biggest thing that you can do for Saturn is service. When you help those in need, especially the elderly, the sick, those who really need your service in life, this is very important. This will help to alleviate some of the karmic effects of Saturn in the chart for sure. Also, humility is big as well because Saturn is the big arch enemy of the sun, and sun is all about our ego. Sun is the king. It is in the position of power and authority. But Saturn is a rebel. Saturn doesn't care so much about being in this position or getting status for things. Saturn is more about the welfare of the people. It's more about being responsible and doing service. And so Saturn demands that we put down our ego, that we remain humble at all times. So this is very important. If you are getting puffed up with your ego, then definitely you're going to see some difficulties related to Saturn in your chart. Sacrifice can also be a big one as well. We know that Saturn is the Digbala in the 7th house of the chart. It's exalted in Libra, which is all about partnership, all about contracts, dealings, negotiation. So it's a binding, it's a contract. It's where you are putting down your ego and really being a part of this partnership, this agreement. So we know that it takes a lot of sacrifice and humility to be in a marriage, to be in any type of commitment. And this is what Saturn looks for from us. So also anything that you can sacrifice, anytime that you can put a selfish desire to the side, this definitely becomes important. So even if you were able to sacrifice something that you really enjoy in life, especially on a Saturday, which is Saturn's day, this definitely can help as well. Some other remedies would be to do meditation on Saturdays and to listen to Saturn mantras on Saturdays as well. Now, of course, you want to see the strength of Saturn in your chart when you're doing any kind of mantras. You want to be careful that you're not activating any of the negative qualities and characteristics of Saturn as well. Another big remedy is that Saturn is associated with death, and Saturn is depicted as riding on a crow or a vulture. And so going to cemeteries and feeding the crows is a big remedy that is associated with Saturn as well. So let's talk about Saturn in the sign of Leo then. And before we do that, we really have to break down what is Saturn and what is Leo. So Leo is the home of the sun. It is all about creativity, self-expression. It's also about leadership and authority, being on the stage of life, performing, politics. It is about being seen and noticed, presenting your confidence and courage to the masses. So Leo is a big sign of inspiration, of leadership, of performance, of really getting in touch with that inner child and really expressing that spontaneous creative side of yourself. And of course, Sun is related to the father-son relationship as well, because Leo is the home of the sun, and sun is signifactor of the father in the chart. Now, what is Saturn then? Saturn is the opposite. Saturn, once again, is the enemy of the sun. So Saturn feels very uncomfortable with Leo, which is what we'll be talking about here in this video. Saturn is a planet of fear and limitation, restrictions, especially when we are younger. Before Saturn begins to mature, we really tend to struggle in the area where Saturn is. It gives us the hardest karmic lessons because Saturn's role and agenda is really for us to rid ourselves of the karma that we have accumulated in our past life experience. So Saturn is testing us. Saturn is wanting to see if we are willing to put in the work, to make the sacrifice, the commitment, to really put down our egos and to remain humble and ethical in all of our actions. As we begin to do this, as we begin to do the work of Saturn, we start to alleviate some of those heavy karmas and actually tend to step into it and master it. Saturn is all about discipline, patience, boundaries, reality of life. Saturn doesn't want to get into things that are not practical, that don't make sense. Saturn wants to show us the truth, wants to remove the illusions of this world and show us what is the true reality of this world. Saturn is all about work, is all about structure, especially repetitive work. Saturn likes for us to remain persistent and diligent in our task and responsibilities. So what happens then when Saturn comes into the sign of Leo? Well, in some way, this is going to give you a fear or a feeling of not wanting to put yourself in the limelight in some sense. At the same time, there's actually a feeling of wanting to be in this position of the limelight or leadership in some way. But Saturn's bringing a fear into the picture also. So with this position, sometimes you are thrust into leadership positions or thrust into positions where you are put on display, but you don't always enjoy it as much. The other side of this is that sometimes you could get too much into your ego where you become a little bit too arrogant in these positions of authority. And this is where Saturn will bring you down with these karmic obstacles and challenges in life. Again, Saturn wants us to put down our ego, wants us to remain humble. But Saturn is giving a responsibility for you to be in this position of leadership, to be put on display, to inspire other people, but to do it in a humble way, to do it in a way where you are not getting too puffed up, too arrogant about it. Definitely with this position, there can be a fear of criticism because, again, this is going to put you in a position where you're put on display. So other people can judge you. Other people can look at your performance or how you are leading, how you're presenting yourself. And there can be a lot of negativity, shame, people trying to tear you down, especially from an early age with this position. And this may lead to some anxiety where you actually shy away from the limelight. With this position, typically there is a desire to work more from the background, especially with certain nakshatras, which we'll talk about later on in this video. But this can make you actually really good in government jobs, in jobs that involve being in uniform, in administrative positions in the government, in politics with this position. As much as you may shy away from these things, you have a natural talent in these areas. So this could give you articulate speech. This could give you a great ability to perform and to be seen. One of the challenges with this position sometimes, though, is that you could compensate. You could put on a fake performance to others, try to make yourself look strong because of this fear of Saturn that's coming in. So that's definitely something you want to be careful of. Saturn wants you, again, to see the reality of who you are, to see your skills and abilities, and to really step into this. But again, to step into this in a humble way. See, Saturn's about service. So whatever leadership role you're put into, you're here to inspire people below you. You're here to lift others up with this position. Now, another factor of Saturn and Leo is that there can be some issues in relationship to the father. Again, Sun rules over Leo, which has to do with the father. So you may have some strong karmic connection with your father. And depending upon how Saturn is placed in the chart, this may be a really strong attachment. But most of the time, if Saturn is poorly placed, then there is separation, there is conflict happening with a father figure in your life. And this may be, again, because your father is critiquing you, your father is putting you down, your father is having huge expectations of how you should perform with this position. Sometimes this position, again, could make you a great actor, a great performer, but it also could just get you into some kind of role or position where you are having to inspire, to encourage, to lift others up. And so the more that you're able to take on this responsibility and to remain humble in it, the more that you will see some success coming to you with Saturn in the sign of Leo. And again, you want to see, how is this position in your chart? This is going to say a lot about how this plays out for you. Another factor is that if the Sun is with Saturn in the chart, then this means that you will definitely have a strong connection with a father figure, that you have this responsibility, this duty, this commitment to that father figure in your life as well. Mainly, though, with this position, it is about being your true self. It's about being in your integrity and really being able to perform and be responsible in this role without getting too much into the ego. You could also see some of these qualities coming through for those people who are represented by Saturn. So again, you want to see which houses in your chart are ruled over by Saturn. But Saturn in general represents those who are in poverty, those who are working for you, those who are in need. So those people who are constantly giving you some kind of service, who are helping you in your life, generally are seen through Saturn. So there can be some aspect of this that plays into their lives as well. So let's talk about the nakshatras, starting off with Magha, which is from 0 degrees till 13 degrees, 20 minutes of Leo there at the beginning. So Magha is represented by a royal throne. It represents the seat of power that is passed down through the ancestors. So this is ruled over by the Petries, by the sacred ancestors. And so definitely if Magha is very strong in your chart, then that means that you have a strong connection with your ancestors, with your family, with your lineage. There's definitely something very prominent there. So oftentimes with the Magha nakshatra, the karmas are coming through the family. This is related to something that has to do with your bloodline. And it has everything to do with being put in positions of authority, being put in positions where you have to inspire, to lead, to lift other people up with this position. Magha is also connected with astral projection and connection to the other realm, again, because of this connection through the ancestors. So especially on the spiritual, mystical side of things, Magha really has to do with these out-of-body experiences, these strange dreams and experiences that take us out of this realm of reality. Magha also has to do with power, with prestige, with education, with being in this position of being able to rise to the top. But again, it's all about being humble. It's all about realizing that this power has been passed down through the ancestors. So what happens then when Saturn comes into the Magha nakshatra? Well, this definitely means that you're going to be put in a position of authority, but you have to serve. You have to use this to help those in need. And oftentimes, this is something that you become very aware of with this placement. There is a tendency to be more humble with Saturn and Magha. But with this position, definitely when you become too egotistical, too much into your ego, then this can bring you down in your reputation. Sometimes this is related to a rags to riches story also, which is associated with the Magha nakshatra. And especially, again, this can represent you if Saturn really is ruling over your chart in that first house. But really with this, it is showing the people who are associated with Saturn. So this is where, again, you want to see what houses in the chart does Saturn rule. But this definitely shows that whatever position of authority you are given, it is all about helping the lower class people. It's all about helping those in need. It's all about lifting people up, bringing people with you, because Saturn, again, is the rebel, which is all about helping humanity. We see that with Saturn's strongest home being in the sign of Aquarius. So with this position, the biggest lesson that you can learn through Saturn is always to remain humble. That is the most important thing when Saturn comes into the Magha Nakshatra. So let's talk about Purva Falguni. Purva Falguni is represented by a bed or a hammock. It's all about relaxation, all about taking vacations, enjoying life, expressing yourself creatively, sexuality. It is a sign that is ultimately about enjoying the pleasures of life. It is all about art, beauty, creativity, extremely creative nakshatra of Purva Falguni. So what happens then when Saturn comes into Purva Falguni? Well, this can also make you very creative with your work, but really it makes you very responsible with the work. So if you're taking on something creative, you're not just doing it for the enjoyment of the art. You also are taking your time, really working hard, putting in your due diligence with all of your tasks and responsibilities. This sometimes could also put a damper on sexuality because Purva Falguni, as I've said earlier, is about the enjoyment of sexuality and it has the power to procreate. So sometimes there can be situations of having children later in life or some kind of feeling of celibacy or restrictions around sexuality. This also, though, could show that, again, those people related to Saturn could have something about them that also is very creative, hardworking, but also there's something strange or something unique related to their sexuality as well. And the biggest thing with this position always, again, is going to be about working hard, really being responsible in the way that you express your creativity. So let's talk about Uttara Falguni, and most of Uttara Falguni falls in the sign of Virgo. So we'll talk more about this in the next video, but especially in the Leo side, this can show that sometimes your ego could get in the way of these things related to Uttara Falguni. So Uttara Falguni is ruled over by a bed similar to Purva Falguni, except this bed has to do with stability. It has to do with creating a stable ground, with really creating strong deals, commitments, contracts, negotiations. It is all about building a sense of security and stability. And there's a lot of abundance that comes through this nakshatra as well. So Uttara Falguni, when Saturn comes in, you just want to make sure that the way that you are handling deals, negotiations, business contracts is in a humble way, that you're not getting too much into your ego, becoming too arrogant with this, because this definitely will make other people dislike you and could even push away some valuable opportunities. So I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you like this, make sure to leave a like, to leave a comment below, share it with a friend if you think this will be valuable. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so that you won't miss out on any new videos. If you're interested in any of my services, I have it all listed on my website, which I will leave a link for down below in the description and in the comments. If you are interested in a free birth chart, which is color-coded, you can also find that on my website as well. And I am offering classes on Vedic astrology. So you can find all of the details and information for everything over on my website, astrochartswithdaquan.com. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.